Welcome, everybody, to That's Good Stuff, our deep dive into pop culture's recent releases. This week, we are diving into The Bear Season 2, the second season of Hulu's surprise hit from, was it last year?
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay. Yeah, that kind of came out of nowhere, and everyone was like, this is freaking amazing. So, of course, they gave it a second season. Um, Before we dive into episodes, there's 10 episodes that we're going to discuss. Before then, how did you watch it? Binge or not to binge? That is the question. Michael?
I started this one because I'm real bad about when I watch things. Well, I don't like to binge things in the first place. There are very few shows that I'll binge.
Yeah.
And when they hit me, I'm just like, okay, well, this is what I'm doing. So I commit to it. But I prefer usually to do either one a day or like spread them out over time so I can remember each individual episode as I get to it. So I started this one, as I told you guys before. The first week, I watched one episode at a time. So it was like 5 days and one episode in a row. Skipped the weekend, came back the next week. Like, all right, we'll start the second half of the season. As we all know, the second half of the season takes turns and does more things. And I watched that all in one sitting. Unintentionally, but it happened.
Thomas, how'd you watch it?
So I watched the first 5 episodes. So we had a recording one night and we decided that we were going to do The Bear. So I watched the first 5 episodes in one night, right after the recording. And then as soon as, because we were originally going to do the first 5 episodes and then do the last 5. But as soon as we were like, yeah, we had to do the, what did we do? All Quiet on the Western Front. That was the other one. And so, and they were like, "Oh no, we're gonna,"
as well.
Yeah, Extraction. That's it. Sorry. As soon as we decided that, I just like immediately watched the last 5 in one setting as well, which is like the longer half of the season. And I was going through finals, and so I would finish up my homework and then start watching the show. I didn't get done till like 3 a.m. at one point. So,
Jared, what was your watching experience?
I think we decided to watch The Bear for the show, and then the next day I watched 5 episodes, and then the day after that I watched the other 5.
So the binge model for Jared. I went episode a day. That's usually how I do things. Because I like to like eat dinner and watch an episode of TV. So I kept that up. Season 1, I binged like all the episodes in one day. So that was my
well, it's also shorter too.
Yeah, right? They were shorter episodes there. I think they were all like 28 minutes or something like that. But I think that may have had an effect on my overall feeling for the show, but we'll get into that after we talk about the episodes. So the 9th episode, or the first episode of season 2, is called Beef. And this pretty much picks up where the season 1 left off, where they decide car. Before we start, I cannot remember anyone's name in this show going into season 2. I always think Carmi's name is Carney. And then I can remember Richie, and then I don't remember anyone else. So I had to relearn everyone's name. But anyway,
Tina, Sydney, Sugar, Richie.
Yeah, everyone
Fat.
has nicknames too, because like Sugar's Natalie,
Marcus.
The big guy is like, what's his name? Fack.
Yeah.
And then he has another name. What is Neil? I think Neil's his.
Yeah, Neil Fack. Yeah. The F and facts. Yeah, it's pretty. That's like one of my favorite lines. I was like, that's pretty good.
So I had to learn everyone's name. I probably still won't remember them, but I think it's better now. So this first episode basically tells us the plot of the season, which is they are going to start a fine dining establishment. So they need money because they got no money. But they have money, but they don't have enough money. And then they kind of give the staff kind of direction to what they're going to be doing while construction is taking place. So anything stand up for this first episode for you guys?
Something I kind of glad that they addressed right off was when they ended the first season, they found $300,000 that they borrowed from Uncle
What is his
Oliver
name?
Oliver Platt.
Oliver Platt.
Yeah, Uncle Oliver Platt, and he's like, yeah, it's $300,000. I was like, in Chicago after COVID, I'm like, that's not enough. That's not gonna be enough money to do anything. And I'm glad that they addressed that when he started doing the spreadsheet on the pizza box. He's like, we're gonna need more money. I'm like, okay, cool. At least they're addressing that, because I was like, $300,000. That's not gonna get you anywhere. So, go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, this was because I feel like we were all kind of curious after the end of season 1. Felt like it was just kind of a contained thing. We're like, I don't really know if I want a season 2, and they announced season 2. Obviously, came out, super successful with the first one, and so this one was very much I was curious coming to it because it was I was like, where are they going to take it? And they very much it's a setup for the whole season, which in hindsight, having seen the season, I'm like, okay, I see where they're planting all things. They plant the issues with Richie, where we have his episode that pays off later on. The episodes or the issues with each character is very much planted in this episode, which I just kind of skimmed through it a second ago, looking through it. And I was like, oh yeah, that began here. But at firstly, when watching it, I was like, yeah, this is just kind of just more of the bear. Like, I get where they're going with it, but I kind of just, and I feel like that's kind of how the first 5 episodes are. Is just more of what we've seen before. But except they're just building the restaurant to be a different thing rather than making the restaurant that they previously had work. So it was very much okay, this is enjoyable. It's just more bear, but it wasn't hitting me crazy strong at all.
Yeah, I was very underwhelmed by the first 5 episodes. So episode 2 is pretty much more of the same. It's called Pasta. They discover a bowl problem. 2 of the older chefs get sent to chef school. Tina and Ebra, I think is their names. And then Carmi runs into an old classmate, which he's kind of sweet on.
There are sparks just firing at that point. It's like there is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's just
what was he buying? Ice cream or something like that?
I can't remember.
Yeah.
He was supposed to be meeting up with Sydney because him and Sydney were doing like those test dishes or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And they're gonna have like a tour of Chicago to like cleanse their palates. And he was supposed to meet up with her, and he blew her off because what's her face showed up. Claire, is it Claire?
Yeah, Claire.
Claire Bear.
Yeah. She showed up, so he's like, "Oh, okay."
All right. Season 3 is called Sunday. This is the first episode 3. This was the first one where I'm like, okay, there was a cool scene in this one. And that's where Sydney is basically going around the city trying every dish she can. Mm-hmm. And I was very envious.
How can that girl eat that much? She was eating all
That's
day.
what I was wondering. I was like, man.
And her first dish was huge. It's the breakfast. I was like,
dude, that breakfast looked awesome, by the way. I wanted that.
I'm not surprised. Usually there's like skinny people who haven't eaten a lot. They'll eat like a ton when they're able to. So I guess
also, was she getting like the funds to go do this from like the restaurant or something?
I'm guessing.
Yeah,
because I was like, how? Like, okay, so me and Jared and Joseph have done like walking tours of like cities, and we've tried to eat out, and we can only afford like one thing from like a place, and then we have to move on. It's normally like the cheapest thing, and she's getting like anything she wants. And I was just like, how does she like afford all that?
Well, every like chef got kind of expenses paid for inspiration or like training.
So
I'm assuming that's
that
what
makes
she.
sense. Yeah,
I forgot about that part. Yeah, like Tommy said, she blew off Carmi, who is like at a drug meet or not a drug meeting, whatever.
He blew her off.
Yeah. What do you call those meetings?
AA meeting?
An AA meeting?
So he goes to AA meeting, and then he like, what is he else do? He's like,
no, I thought he was dropping that thing off with Claire. Their like inspection thing.
oh, okay. And they kind of bond in the car and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, because he was supposed to come back, and then they went somewhere else after. Because he went to the party with her. Because they.
Oh, is this the party one?
The party episode.
He ended up going to that other house instead of going to meet. What's her face?
I barely remember that part. Like I remember her eating and
Dude.
and then she came back to the bear after like Carmi had like kind of gone ballistic inside. Not ballistic, but like they discovered like mold or something.
Oh yeah, that does.
And basically completely gutted the inside without telling her. And so
Yeah, this is
I feel for Carmi in this episode. Like she just takes him to a friend's party, and she's like, "Are you nervous?" And he's like, "I don't want to do this."
yeah, we've all been there.
that's also where they introduced the signal.
Actually, I just
think-
skimmed
Oh, where
it.
they
This
go
is
like that?
this isn't the party episode.
This
Oh,
isn't.
no.
That must be the next one.
Oh, well, at some point they introduced the.
Yeah, this is
the
just
hand-
this just
the hand
focuses on
signal.
her going around and trying all the dishes.
I have one note about this. The lady, you know how she's talking to each like head of the restaurants?
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
Lady, did she work with her before? Was that the
It seemed like she
Yeah,
knew,
it
or
seemed
maybe she
like
knew
it.
her from like culinary school. Or
Oh, it was like
something.
warning
Yeah.
her off.
Yeah.
because later on they show that her restaurant like closes down.
Hmm.
Mhm.
I feel like it was more just they were trying to implant Sing, which actually didn't think they did very well in this season. Or at least there's
Yeah.
two people that I feel like didn't get really any sort of closure, or if they did, it wasn't as good. And it's I'm drawing a blank on her name. What's her name?
Who?
The partner that went around tasting everything?
Sydney?
Sydney. Thank you.
Sydney.
Like they have this whole kind of riff that's torn with Sydney, and they do an okay job in the end of kind of tying it up, but I feel like it needed
Not
more
really.
attention. Yeah, I feel like it definitely needed more attention. Then also the other chef, not Tina, whatever her name is, but the one that was having a lot of
Ebra.
trouble. Yeah, him. I feel like they didn't really address his thing.
He
at
Not
just
at
all.
all.
disappeared.
Like
Yeah,
he
he
was
disappears.
struggling a lot, and then he just kind of shows back up, and he's like, "I'm ready to work now." You're like, okay, I feel like there was an episode missing in there of like his transformation.
Yeah.
Those are the two characters. I'm like, we need a little more attention on them, but
Definitely. Okay, so I gotta admit, Sydney bugs the heck out of me.
I actually like Sydney.
I like.
I feel like
Sydney, yeah.
she would bug me, but she
She just rubs me wrong.
she
Like the
reacts
first-
so poorly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
The first season really bugged me when her and Marcus just like they quit because he yelled at them,
Yeah.
and that made me like very upset. So I was very mad at those two.
she's also the
And-
youngest.
Yeah.
And then this season, we'll talk about it later, but she does something again that makes me mad. Marcus was okay. I think they did a better job with Marcus this season. So that brings us to the next episode, which is episode 4 called Honeydew.
Pause. This is my favorite episode. This is like
Honeydew
my
is?
dream. Yeah.
It
Yeah,
is-
I can see that.
Yeah.
He just
Oh,
gets shipped
Marcus
off
is-
to Copenhagen to
Okay,
learn dessert.
the second that he lives on the boat, I'm just like, okay, Jared, this would be like Jared's dream to like go
And then-
learn about pastries and
Yeah.
Just those those mornings, super quiet, just you and the other chef learning about like desserts. And I like it was the guy that from
Guardian.
Guardians and stuff like that. He was pretty cool in this. I liked just how they kind of bond. 'Cause It's
Yeah.
kind of like restaurant workers, how they bond. You're just doing this like tedious task and you just talk about your life.
I did like he's like, all right, I need this stuff made. He's like, cool. And he kind of looks at him, he's like, do you know how to make this? No. He's like, okay, well, here's the instructions. Go for it. Like, no, like hand holding, like he already assumes that he knows how to do stuff. So here's the instructions, go do it. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah, I like the aspect a lot because it was one of the you come into it and you're like, oh, is this guy gonna be like he doesn't want to? It's kind of like that fear you always have going to an established place and you're undertrained or whatever. Like I felt like that the guy was gonna be like, oh gosh, now I have to babysit you, whatever. But then he just became super cool and he was like, oh yeah, I'll help you out, whatever. Like he was very straight to the point, which I feel like what was his name? His name's Will Poulter.
Well,
I
yeah.
feel like he did a
Mhm.
great job in this. Like
Mhm.
it's just
Yeah.
it was very very different from any character I've seen, especially recently with Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, he like begged them to be on the show.
Really
Oh, dang.
Yeah, so he was really
awesome. Yeah, he did
I
a
did
great
good.
job.
Yeah.
I did like part of Marcus's instruction for the boat was feed the cat. And it's like, I don't think there is a cat.
I did. Yeah, this felt. One of my problems with this season was Carmi. They kind of went away from him and they focused on the other characters. Which season 1 is all about Carmi, and we see all the fast pacedness of his life and stuff like that. So that's why I was kind of bummed out by this season. But saying that, Marcus kind of gets his own like season one, the bear kind of like if he was the main character, because he does, like you say, he traveled. He's dealing with his mom who's sick. So we get some backstory there, and then I like because I love watching food shows and stuff like that. So I did like his training, and then I like the part, this random part where the guy wrecks his bike into like a construction.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that was alarming.
Yeah.
I thought he was gonna get stabbed because he hugged him, and I was like,
Yeah.
is he doing this like to?
I thought he was gonna rob him. Yeah, rob him or
something.
something.
Something I did like, and we'll get into it some of the other episodes, is that it kind of like you said, like it kind of like shies away from Carmi, like more focus, but it does show his influence in the like culinary world.
I was gonna say I like the
Mhm.
world building it does.
Yeah, you get a bit more like of an idea of how big of a deal he was or still is really. And because like in the show they kept like saying like, oh, he's like, oh, he's this guy, and then you learn he actually has a Michelin star, like, which is pretty like insane that him being so young. And but we'll get into more of that in a second. But I did like the small influences that Carmi's like presence had with the other chefs that they encounter.
Yeah, we'll get to that when we get to the last episode. So episode 5 of this season is called Pop, and this is the one we were talking about. This is the one with the party.
Oh.
And this is also the liquor license, like Jared was saying. This is where they go and deliver that, and then they head to the party.
The shadiest liquor license deal.
That was pretty like.
I didn't like this episode. Did you guys like this episode?
It's fine.
It was kind of like it was literally in the middle. Like it was all right. But the thing is, it's like bookended by 2 like really really heavy episodes. So you have like Marcus's, and then you have this one, and then you have the next one, and so you just completely forget about this one ever happening. Really,
my issue is the lack of like restaurant food stuff. This is too much of their lives. Yeah,
this was basically just a Claire, more introduction to Claire episode.
Yeah,
just getting back through it, but
we'll get it. I have thoughts about her, but we'll get to it.
Tina, like at karaoke, was kind of weird.
That was weird.
I like that scene though.
It was a good scene. I feel like she played it really well, and she played it really well, but it was an awkward scene.
Yeah,
it was like it should have been in like in an indie movie or something. It was really weird.
Yeah,
especially how it was shot. It was like an A24 movie.
Yeah,
it's like slightly out of focus. Over the like, there's somebody's shoulder in the shot.
I had like major anxiety because I thought she was gonna sing
badly.
Not as well as she did.
Okay,
so good singing voice.
Mm-hmm.
So after leaving the first 5 episodes, I went on a little mini vacation for 4th of July. Went to see the family. So I was not digging this season. So I came back the first day of work, and I get to episode 6, and this is where this is what I wanted, man. This one. Fishes.
My anxiety was through the roof on this one.
What an intense episode.
Yeah.
Like, ooh.
This reminds me of cooking at my family's house.
But with actual, like we yell just to yell. This was like bad vibes.
This was like someone was going to get stabbed. Like
the cooking part's very familiar because my mom hates when anyone goes in the kitchen.
Don't touch anything.
But at least when we get to the table, everyone's like happy and we're eating and stuff. This did not happen in this.
Nobody was happy at that table.
This was the most star-studded one.
Dude.
Oh, I know.
John Mulaney shows up. Sarah Paulson shows up. Freaking your man crush shows up.
What's her name? What's her name? From Halloween.
Jamie Lee Curtis.
Jamie Lee Curtis is the mom. And then there's one more. Who are we missing? John Bernthal, which we've seen, but he's there. He's back as Michael.
I love him. I love him as Michael. He is
such a good actor, man.
And his scene.
God, he's good.
Hit that scene.
Kirk, man,
That scene
was
at
a
the
good
table
My God.
used to be like at work with Carlos and Chris. A whole like.
He's throw the fork. No, the scene that got me. I mean, the whole episode was like emotionally like draining, especially from Sugar's point of view. Like that poor woman, I swear.
Yeah,
I know.
yeah, this
Like
did a lot to like give her
trying
character
so
depth.
hard.
And go ahead.
Make your point out. I'm sorry.
Oh well, even like Richie, like you get a really and kind of like surprising. Richie was a really good husband, like
Yeah.
really like supportive and worked his butt off to try to support like his family.
Looked like they really loved each other.
Yeah,
And
so
the-
like
what's her name
happened?
from Love is she's such a good actress too.
Gillian Jacobs.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Gillian
is this
Jacobs.
like a community at like
Yeah,
reunion?
true.
Like
It's so
yeah,
good.
Joe McHale is in the first season and he's in this season. And it's like, oh, it's like Ken Chong gonna like show up or something, or Danny Paduti. But
Oh, we get Pete back too. Pete was funny in the first season, and he comes. He's Claire's, or not Claire, Natalie's husband.
Yeah, the
okay.
comedian guy.
John
Yeah, and
Mulaney.
he's just-
Yeah, he was
So
so
out
he
of
was
place
so
in
good
that
in this.
family.
I
He had a
loved
really good
it.
speech too.
Oh, it was very good. I loved his just input because he's completely not like any of them at all. But he's also
Yeah.
not affected by it. He's just kind of amused and prodding where he can like add commentary to
When-
it. Oh, this is
When
one. He's
Sugar's
wonderful.
husband shows up with the
And brings
tuna
the fish.
the tuna fish.
Oh,
And everybody's
my
like, you
God.
jackass, what did you do? Even John Mulaney, who's like completely removed from this, he's like, what did you do?
What are you thinking? Like I told you not to. She throws it outside.
yeah,
Dude, he was a
God.
standout this season. Like he was
gets
really
back
good
to
in
the
this.
He
final
was really
episode.
good. Yeah.
Oh.
Oh man. Yeah. True.
But I think my favorite scene was where Mike, like John Barenthal's in the closet, kind of having a panic attack, and then Carmi comes in, like a little brother, like, hey, here's my like idea. Oh, that's really cool. Appreciate it. Yeah, yeah. Then he like leaves and just completely has a complete breakdown in the closet. Like you can see the mental illness
Mhm.
growing, because we saw some of it in the first one, for that first flashback, and then like he was a little unstable, and here he's like almost unhinged. Like it's intense. But ooh.
Man.
And in the car through the freaking living room.
Yeah, we're just
Oh my god.
Well, that I feel like just and then it's like the whole episode comes to that kind of head with him and Bob Odenkirk, where he's just like, "You're nothing. You're useless. There's no
Yeah.
point to you. Why are you here?" And I was just like, "Holy!" It's just like hammering. It's like, "Oh my gosh!" And it makes me wonder if we'll see him later on in like a Bob Odenkirk character later
okay.
on, like
Yeah.
as them maybe confronting him for the first time since it happened or something like that. But
One scene that got me was Jamie Lee Curtis talking to Carmi. He's like, "Oh, let's go out to the table. Everyone's
Oh,
waiting
yeah.
for you." And she's like, "Go sit down now." And
Yeah.
I was like, "Geez," she was so intimidating at that
Well,
point.
even when she was like berating him, like if they like if I died right now, nobody would miss me. Like nobody would
Yeah.
care. No, not a person would care. And oh,
it was so interesting. I'm trying to remember what exactly the line changed her, because at first, Carmi's very like, which is what she wants. She wants the attention and the pity and everything, and he's giving it to her. And then he changes just that tone or that where I can't remember what exactly it is, and that's whenever she gets angry, like you said. It's just like how well she played that, and how like it's interesting watching that, because it's the opposite of my family. If my family's at an event like that and we're mad at each other, it's just silence. Like there's no screaming, there's no berating. It just gets
it
awkward
seems
and
like it'd
silent.
be worse.
I know.
I mean, that's awful, but this to me was so believable in that sense of seeing it. If people let their emotions go in a scenario like that, like it's just absolutely just that kind of like, I don't know, erratic family dynamic. It's just none of them meld together well, but they're all their own personalities and such strong personalities. It's like, man, this episode was amazing, dude.
yeah.
I mean, I come from a family that has like severe mental illness, like bipolarism and all that kind of crap, and like especially the matriarch like being unhinged. That was bringing some like flashbacks. I was like, oh god, that was like 15 years ago. Holy crap! But just the realness of it was shocking. Okay, it kind of grossed me out, but I could see it. Is when she was doing like the bread, but she was buttering it with like her freaking hands. But she was just like being like so erratic. She's like, there you go. And then she like picks up like the glass of wine. It's like smeared with butter. You're like, oh, but she's just trying to be efficient, trying to get everything done. And so it's,
Yeah, one of my favorite things about the first season was just the intensity of the episodes, and this is the only one where I felt that intensity again, and I was just like basking in it. I was like, "This is amazing."
Just backstroke bathing in it.
Get your heart elevated a bit.
You wonder who the dad was. Was it like Stallone? Do we find out it was Stallone?
So they're Italian, right? That's what they're supposed to
I
be.
believe so, yeah.
Okay, but and we never learn what 7 fishes means. Like really?
It's a real thing. It's a tradition for Catholic families near Christmas where you eat 7. I've always wanted to do it, but my family's not really into fish. So maybe someday.
You're desert people.
Yeah, true. Okay, so we got the next one, which real fast. The uncle.
Uncle Jimmy.
Uncle Jimmy.
Jimmy, that's his name.
He offers Richie a job. Does anything come from that?
We don't know. We don't know what happened. We don't know what happened.
We don't know
what broke up the marriage.
Maybe.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Oh, we'll see some of that in the next one. But yeah.
Yeah. So the next episode is called Forks.
Oh my god!
And this is all about.
Oh, it's so good.
Richie's small movie.
God, it was so good. Oh, okay.
Richie's Devil Wears Prada.
coming into this like episode, because I watched all these back, like the first half and the second half back to back. I was like, okay, well, there's the top of the season. I can't really top that. And then this episode comes in and just like, for me personally, like matches that. I was just like, I love this episode. I was like, that's everything I wanted in an episode, and this is amazing.
It's like where the episode previously horrified you. This one just had me smiling the entire time.
Right. I was like,
the further it went, the more I'm just like, I'm now bathing in the joyousness of this episode.
When he got more and more into it, and he was like so sure of himself, felt so confident.
So what he's doing? Sorry, we got to summarize. He's staging as a front of house and like basically a concierge like of a restaurant at this. What is apparently the best restaurant
like a
in the world.
Restaurant.
Yeah, like the best restaurant in the world, apparently. Mm-hmm. And through Carmi's contacts, that's how he's able to get it. And when he gets there, he's just like he's polishing forks.
Oh no, they got 4 stars when they opened the same year.
Yeah, so they open and they ended up getting
Yeah, we get another cameo. I forget her name. I always
Olivia
Colman.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, and part of that too is like, okay, so Richie's like the guy who plays Richie, performance so good, so amazing, God. And then Olivia Colman comes in, and she just like out acts everybody. Like, go away, stop it.
She is almost impossible to beat.
You get everything. Stop it. Let people have something.
She's so good, man. She is so.
She was
good.
only in this for like 4 minutes.
I know, and I'm still like you were like burned in my memory of the show now.
But she's so good in this, and
it's a total transformation episode because like he starts off with a bad attitude. He's washing forks all day. He's like cussing, and they don't want you to cuss there. But then he just like falls in love with the business, and he falls in love with suits. He's gonna wear suits.
That was really cool. I liked that when the other concierge put the suit on him. He's like, I feel like I'm in armor. He's like, that's the point. Like you're dressing up for battle, man. This is what you go into battle for or with.
I like the whole smudge situation.
Oh, I know.
Oh, the smudge. Yeah.
The yelling chef.
He's like, F you, Gary.
He's like, yes, chef. Yeah, I loved the kind of like payoff that because earlier on we had that in the beginning it set it up really where he has to argue with Sugar and Richie and it's like and he talks to Carmen about how he doesn't have a purpose. He's like, I don't know what I need to be doing or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the basement scene. That was heavy.
And so the transformation of this point of him finding purpose and where he is and creating his purpose and having like pride in his work and not just, doing it to do it. He's like putting effort and seeing the rewards of that. It's just like this episode couldn't have done it better. I don't know how you could have. And like you guys said, him at the end, and he comes like later on, we see him, he's like, I'm Superman now. I'm like, yes, you are. Yes, you are a Superman. Wonderful.
And even tacked on more world building because you meet a couple more people of Carmi's past.
Yeah.
And really cool.
And he even gets bad news in this one because he got the Taylor Swift tickets for his daughter, and then the ex-wife tells him that she's getting married to someone else.
That was like, I felt for that. Like that sucks because you can obviously tell that he's like still like in love with her.
Yeah,
like in that scene, you can see while she's on the phone with him, he's still wearing the ring and she's not. I'm like, geez.
Yeah, and okay, I have some respect for Richie, man. So I did like when he was like getting the girl or his daughter out. He's like, "I'm sorry, honey. I know you love Taylor Swift, but I just needed a small break. I apologize." And then like when he's like getting his hype on, it's old Taylor Swift of the Juliet song, and I loved when he was driving. He's like, "Yeah," like it's like like everything about this episode just like raised my spirits, and I was just like, man, this is what I really needed after that last episode. Again, this is what Richie needed too, so that was kind of a cool thing to see. So
good.
But I love this episode.
So episode 8, Bolognese. I don't remember this one too much. Do you guys?
I'm skimming through it right now.
This is okay. The part I remember is so they're all getting ready to open or have that mock night or the kind of the test night, and there is a scene where they implied that Carmi and Sydney might have feelings for each other.
Yeah, that was weird.
Because they were putting that table together, and then like, I need you, and she's like,
I think that's in the next episode.
Is it in the next?
This
episode?
one, the shop's still kind of like papered walls and everything. They're just setting up. For exactly what.
Remember this one at all?
Oh, this is where they're hiring they're doing the hiring process. So Tina goes out first and yells at all them in line, and then Richie comes back and he's in a Superman now, and he's starting to take responsibility.
That was a good scene with him and Sugar.
Where that was very good. And the guy walks in and sits there. She's like, I need a witness for this.
You good with that? Yeah, it was good. Solid.
And then the whole napkin theme where like he put the napkin the fork on the napkin wrong, and
that was cool. I like that.
Shows how much show how much he's changed and how much he's dedicated.
Yeah, I love that. That was so good.
I mean, that's about all that happened. This one was short too, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I don't see much more that happened.
Yeah. This is the one where Marcus dedicates that dessert to
Michael.
Michael. That was pretty touching.
Yeah, because this is the one where like everybody comes back. Like Tina comes back from culinary school, Marcus comes back from Holland, and then Richie comes back from
the older guy comes back too and says he's ready to work.
And this is when they finally get the fire thing inspection.
Oh, the fire extinguishing system.
That's how this one ends. Yeah.
And he like figures out that
finally he had jacked it up trying to burn it down for insurance money, whatever.
Okay, I'll say it since I am Jewish lightning. That was hilarious.
I don't know what that is.
They explain it.
So okay, it's a very racial like thing. Is that so? It's a stereotype that Jews burn down their own business to get the insurance money.
Oh gosh!
And like even Mel Brooks has a joke about it. He's like, "Moish, I heard about the fire." He's like, "Shh, Thursday." So
earlier in the season, I was like, you can't say that. And
you can't say that.
I remember that, but I was like, I don't know what it means, but now I get it.
I was cracking up at that.
That's
I was
funny.
like, okay, that's funny. It's funny.
That's
funny. That's what it is.
Cheeky, if you know what I mean. Okay. Episode 9 is Omelet. So this is where they're about to get ready to open. I think, Jared, what were you saying this one's about?
No, I just mentioned that part with Carmi and Sydney.
So I did notice that too, but also when Carmen's having a panic attack in the alleyway, like everything's going through his head. Everything's going through his head.
And then her.
and then Sydney shows up in his mind and he completely just calms down.
Yeah.
Because like I watched a few videos about that and everybody's just like, are they?
I know, it was so
Good.
weird because it's not a great, I don't know, in my head, it's not a great matchup.
I feel like they were trying to more, which is what I was talking about earlier about them not really fleshing out her storyline with him well, is they're just trying to talk about, because there's so many people in that one episode where she's traveling around, they're trying to scare her off having a partner. Like, hey, you don't want a partner. You don't want to do this with anyone
Right.
else. People can bail on you. They're not going to be trustworthy.
Yeah,
They
they kept saying
kind of
that.
tease that with Claire around and he's not showing up, everything. So I feel like that wasn't really that well done. And so I feel like that's what this is kind of, to where he's seeing it because oh my God, I forgot her name again. What's her name?
Sydney.
Sydney. I don't know why I can have Sydney. Because she's so terrible at communicating with him. And so I feel like he doesn't see that doesn't see them as simpatico and doing well as partners. And so he kind of thinks of her as a good partner, but she doesn't think of him as a good partner, but she doesn't tell him that. And so I feel like that's kind of how they're trying to say it.
I think part of it is they come to the conclusion that they're choosing to be partners in this.
Yeah.
Like at the table scene specific. That was a good scene, by the way. It was very well written and in a one shot, which I was like, that was like a 6-minute scene. So that's pretty good. And I think
What
they're
were they
coming
trying to fix? What was wrong with it? I don't know.
I have no idea.
it was the
He just wiggled it.
Yeah.
it's like the napkin holder or
That's
something.
what it looked
Yeah.
like, but I have no idea.
But I did like the scene because it does come to the conclusion that both of them are choosing to work together and like actually deciding to work together, not like, well, we're stuck here. But
No, like Michael said, it didn't really pay off because they had that scene where she's going around eating and everyone's saying, "Oh, you got to have a good partner." It felt like foreshadowing, like real obvious foreshadowing. But I don't think they really paid that off in the finale, which I guess we'll get to because I really don't think there's much more.
There was
to that.
There was one scene in this one where he's talking to Uncle Jimmy, Carmi is, and he kind of has that kind of moment of, hey, you got to do this. Like, you got to, like,
Oh yeah,
they had that kind of lead
Gives
up
them
to
a
the
speech.
final one of like, hey, no distractions. This has to be your main focus if you want this to work. And so that kind of leads into the conflict that ends up playing
Well,
out.
he's like, I have a girlfriend. He's like, whoops.
He's like,
Whoop.
yeah. He plays his part so well, man.
dude, Oliver Platt, like,
Dude, he plays it so well.
This is like the second time he's played like a financial backer for like chefs, by the way, because he did the one in Chef for John Favreau,
Mm.
and he's so good as like kind of like the slimy, but like obviously more intelligent than anybody else in the room.
He's the numbers guy that doesn't think about people.
I like the metaphor he gives him, the baseball metaphor, and he's
That
like,
was good.
"Oh, so I'm this guy," and he's like, "No, you dummy, you're this guy."
Yeah. Oh, this is the one where Sydney kind of ticked me off again.
You just have it out for this season.
If I say-
I
you don't
don't
like
know
her.
what I want to like her, but
You're
she
not
does-
trying.
She brings up how Carmi's like distracted by his girlfriend, and she's like, "Oh, we're letting her have input," and he's like, "No, she didn't have input. She just gave me the idea."
I can see that though. Like I was just like, dude, stop listening to Claire. Like,
Well, it's just the fact that he needed to talk to Sydney. I almost said Susan. He needed to talk to Sydney about, like, he wasn't involving her in a lot of stuff. He felt like I was saying earlier, she wasn't communicating. They weren't on the same wavelength, even though I felt like they were. So yeah,
I think it's just her passive way of confronting him that kind of bugs me. I just want her to yell at him or something, and she doesn't do that.
She also just wants brawls every episode. Brawls.
yeah,
I do.
he wants cars flying through front door or garage doors, and
he just wants that
forks
Italian
thrown at-
dinner.
As a Hispanic, I kind of know how the Italians feel.
That's true.
Sometimes. But we also forgot to mention real fast that Natalie finds out that she's pregnant during the season. And everyone knows it. She's kind of worried about it. Yeah, because she's dealing with all this stuff, stressing out. And then
She's like, I don't want anyone to know, and then the wall falls down. And then Richie's like, "Yeah."
Sydney makes her a gross looking omelet, which ticked me off again. I'm like, it doesn't just chips on an omelet. You're
Pregnant.
I would do that. That sounds good.
She's pregnant. She just needs.
You're just looking to be mad at her.
Why
Joseph.
does she tick me off? I don't know.
You got beef.
Yeah, you got some beef here.
Okay, so we get to the final episode called The Bear, which is the restaurant that they are opening.
Okay, so Joseph said there wasn't too much intensity. This one kind of
Yeah, kind
brought
of.
up anxiety for
Yeah.
me working in the kitchen because it was the ticket thing again. I was like, oh my
Dude,
god,
the ticket's like a flashback.
and then they had a chef just disappear mid shift. I was like, oh
Josh!
my god.
The
Right,
first chef to
Josh.
disappear.
Okay, so
And then there's a fight amongst the chefs between Sydney and Marcus because
Yeah.
they have a misunderstanding. I was like, oh my god.
Oh yeah, because
This
he
is
like
great.
asks her out, and then it becomes like, why would you do that today? Why would you do that today?
Why would you do
That's
that
on
right
Marcus.
before the first
That's-
shift?
That's
Yeah.
on Marcus.
Who I thought should be together.
Like you do that at the end of the shift when everything's happy and you successfully did everything.
I don't disagree, but Marcus
Yeah.
is like an idiot for timing.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
The dude has no like sense of like timing. Like even in the
Hey.
first, like the last season when he just like left, he's like, dude, stop making the donuts.
Did they kind of alluded to it the last episode, right? Before this one, where they kind of share a moment and then they're like, "Oh, this is awkward."
Yeah, I think so. There was some small thing. I
No.
can't remember what it was though.
Didn't they have a pretty like I guess cute scene when he was in Copenhagen and he's like,
Oh, yeah.
I feel
Yeah,
guilty
they
for being
FaceTimed.
here. Yeah.
Yeah, they
And
kind of
then
they played with them throughout the season, but
Mhm.
Okay, back to this episode though. So like you were saying, it's a rush because it's their first dress rehearsal, and tradition is you invite all your friends and your family to a meal to try to test it out on them. So this episode, I have problems with it. I had problems with the way the first season ended too. But my main issue with this episode is, like I was saying, Carmi is not the focus of most of the season. In this one,
Wasn't the focus of the episode.
yeah, he gets trapped in a refrigerator. So he has to rely on his staff to come up and, to perform for him. Which I get, because the season's kind of building on like how he's improving his staff, and that in a way he can rely on them more because he's going to be kind of the office chef. He's not. Sydney's the head chef, and he's kind of going to be just kind of like the guy in the office.
Well, like it even kind of shows like what his role should be in
yeah,
the first season and this season. Like when he was working at Nobu, you had the chef in the back, and he would come in to like check everything.
yeah,
And then with Richie, she was just like, she trusted her staff to work it out, but she would also have a critical eye of like a walkthrough. And that's what he was supposed to be doing.
yeah. So I get that. I get that. That's what they're trying to build up, is that he needs to kind of like take a step back and let his staff work for him. But I think they did it in a really like terrible way by trapping him in the refrigerator. I would have liked it a lot better if because I was expecting a meltdown, because something always goes wrong with restaurant openings. I think that's very well documented. So I was expecting him to have some kind of meltdown, some kind of blow up, in like Sydney or Richie like confront him and tell him like, you got to leave, just go away. I would have preferred that than him just accidentally getting stuck in the refrigerator.
They were like leading up to it the entire season though.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I would say against it, is because of the assumed neglect he was giving to the restaurant. Well, I wouldn't say it was neglect he was giving because of Claire. He wouldn't call Tim or Timmy, whatever the fridge guy. He kept saying he was going to call him. Kept saying he was gonna
Even
fix
they
it.
don't know. The
So it's
fridge
just,
guy.
yeah, so it's just the kind of payoff for that. But
Yeah, I get it. I get what they were setting up. I just don't like how they executed it. I'd rather have it have been like a confrontation with them, and like Sydney say, "Hey, you haven't been here. You messed up, so get out of here while we try to run this restaurant." But that's where it kind of fell apart for me. Because I really wanted to like this episode, because the start of it was really good. Like they were
They had
into
a
that
really
rush.
good like oneer for
they
the
had
first
a
10 minutes.
very
of the episode.
long one. I was trying
Like-
to Google just now how long it was. I couldn't find it, but it was forever long.
It's about 10 minutes, and they hit the cuts really well in between the dinner, or sorry, the dining room, and when one person would cross into the kitchen. It was always on the back side of them. And I like that is that you would like be from the dining room and instantly into the kitchen, and everything would just be overwhelming.
kept your
I
item.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a cool shot, or it's a cool sequence of shots.
Yeah, and there was good stuff to like in this episode, like Richie taking over. Sydney bugged me again because she kind of like handed it off to him because she didn't look like she could do it. But
what was kind of cool is that the way that they were setting it up was the way Carmi was doing it at Nobu was with his back to the chefs, and then Richie went to I don't know the other restaurant's name. That
the Forks
wherever
episode.
the Forks episode restaurant was that the person that was plating everything and calling out orders was physically facing the chefs and watching the kitchen flow, and he learned like, oh no, that's a better way to do it. It's less traditional, but it's more effective that way. And they're like, oh yeah, we need to move the entire thing this way so I can call out.
I like in Forks when he's like, I see the pattern.
Oh,
Here comes a Mentat from Dune. He's just like, Arr.
There's another good scene where their mom actually shows up, but she can't get into the restaurant.
That poor husband, man.
Yeah.
Poor Pete.
Swear, poor
Pete goes out there and tries to get her to go in because he knows how much it would mean to them, but
he is too good for that family.
yeah, she just lets him down. But
And it hits that point where she realized she didn't know about the baby. I was like, oh snap!
Yeah.
You're like, oh snap! And just like, gosh, so well performed.
Poor Pete, man. He took it hard.
I know,
Dude, his like trying to hold it in whenever she sits back at the table. I'm like, oh my gosh, you're hurting my soul. Please stop.
Yeah. You could tell that he was like going like through a severe emotional like episode, but really trying to support his wife, like because that was more important than what he was feeling. I really liked that. Pete's a good guy, man.
Sydney's dad's there. I think he's kind of cute. He's got a cute role.
He confuses me.
I don't drink. Oh, we have the soda cart?
Yeah.
Oh, I did like that a lot.
That's cool.
It's like the paying attention thing.
I did like
he's super supportive. Oh, go ahead, Jared.
I did like how Richie remembered Jimmy's story about his dad.
The banana.
The bananas.
Yeah.
That was
He's like, oh,
sweet.
I don't need dessert. And he like lifts up the box. He's like,
He just cries.
good on you,
He's
Richie.
really choked
Good
up.
on you, Richie.
Well, and that's something that's kind of cool is that he learned to personalize each experience with the customers because that the deep dish scene from episode 7.
Oh my gosh, that was so good. That was so good.
So cool. He's like, I gotta get a deep dish.
He runs down.
I'll never be rich enough to go to a restaurant like this, but if they like could read my mind, I would kind of be a little scared. Like if they were pulling out my favorite foods and stuff, I'm like, oh, how do you guys know this?
Well, they said they do research on all their
Instagram.
It's wild.
That's a little disconcerting.
They make you their meal.
They make you the perfect sandwich.
They're like they're bringing me a club sandwich with Topo Chico. I'd be like, oh, how do you know?
This is your first course, sir. The first sandwich.
Can we talk about Army having some like Jared bad luck in the walk-in where he's just going through like his, feelings of like
thinking he's talking to someone else,
and
and then the girl hears and you're like, oh.
Yeah, let's get to the Claire part before. Because real fast, I just wanted to say it was kind of weird in the beginning. Richie's like talking to Claire, but for some reason the camera refuses to pan over to the whoever she brought as her like.
Oh, I know, that was weird.
Oh yeah,
I was like, oh okay, are we gonna get another celebrity like guest star or something like that? And then later on, it's just some person I don't even know. So I thought that was a little weird. Yeah, so Claire shows up. Carmi in the episode before didn't take her calls because he figured that he had important stuff to do, opening the restaurant and everything. So she hasn't seen him or heard from him in a while, but she's there to support him.
They have that Ben Parker moment with the voicemail. Like
that's awful.
What he needed to hear, but after the fact.
That was awful, man. That hurt.
So, what did you guys think of Claire in this season overall? No?
Thomas shaking his head?
Really? I thought Thomas was
lovely.
I didn't see any kind of chemistry with these two characters. Like, I'm not talking about sexual chemistry, but just like she's
Michael's like, what?
I don't know. She just seemed too not say too perfect,
Yeah.
but she was just kind of there. I'm just like, okay, what are you doing here?
Yeah, for
Okay.
like a character like Carmi, you would think he'd need someone who can like yell at him and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
well, and that's things that she was emotionally supportive. Cool. That's that's
Yeah.
something that you need. But she would also like severely distract him from what he was supposed to be doing. And especially like the what do you call it? Not just the fridge, but he was also going completely against like what his partner was supposed or not even against, but wasn't including what his partner was like her input, but was asking Claire's input. So he's choosing the wrong partner. He really needs to focus on who he needs to listen to, and he shouldn't be listening to a doctor for chef.
Well, it's also
or-
his first relationship.
Is
So
it?
he says he's never had time for this. And
Oh, okay. I
Kind
didn't
of
know
this is
that
his
part.
very first relationship. So you will understand that he would be very distracted and he
Yeah.
wouldn't know how to deal with it.
That makes more sense. I didn't know that part,
Yeah.
but I don't know. I didn't really see the point of her. Like she just
Yeah.
seemed kind of a one-off character.
It was
She
very
did seem very much like a distraction.
it was a very
Yeah.
like convenient written character because
Yeah.
he needs a distraction. Oh, let's give him the distraction in the
That and
same
the fact
season.
that she had sex with Fack. Like what?
Ew, I didn't know
What?
that.
Did you not know that?
No.
He's like, he's talking to Carmi. He's like, yeah, I hit that. I was like, oh,
What the
No,
hell?
he did that because he. got
Oh
them
yeah, he's saying I
together.
did that. He made that happen. He made them get
he
together.
did that.
I was like, that
Dang
doesn't
it,
fit in the
Thomas.
slightest.
that makes so much more
Yeah.
sense.
Hold on
No,
a
that's when he
minute.
said that. I was like, oh.
That would be so out of place.
Yeah.
Dang it, Thomas! Get your mind out of the gutter.
Jesus.
I'm sorry.
One of my favorite. Oh, go ahead. Did you want to talk about Claire?
Yeah, I'm gonna say before we move on, I'm gonna completely disagree with all of you because I thought like from the
I didn't say anything.
you said that she was like kind of a written distraction.
Yeah, but I didn't say I disliked her.
True. From the moment that it hit that point of them at the freezer, whatever the heck he was buying ice cream, whatever it was, I was like it's just something in the way they act it and something way like you see the history, even though there were just two actors, you see the history there so plainly. And I was like, oh shoot, bananas! Like I was totally like
Shoot
I just
bananas.
felt that tear of like him finally wanting something normal and not this like he says later on, he's like, I'm a psychopath. I'm so rigid and so like he's so stuck on the way he's done things. It's how he's coped and moved forward. Like her kind of like tearing him from whatever she's still dealing with this. Like she's in her what's it called? The doctor thing, Regency, Radiance.
Oh,
Residency.
Residency. There you go. Regency. Jesus Christ. She's not stressed. Like she's doing crazy stuff, working long hours or anything, but she's so opposed to his kind of like overload because he just has never dealt with anything mentally that he's just losing his mind. Like Jared said, he's never actually been with it. Like seemingly, they don't really like completely spell it out, but I feel like it's pretty obvious that they play it out as though, he never had time for anything like this before. And so
yeah.
I don't know. I loved their dynamic and how well they played it off each other. I felt like they were so drawn together. Like just like that fridge scene, them looking at each other. I was like, oh my gosh, like it's so painful to me. So it leads up to this last episode where, like Joseph said, he doesn't answer that phone call. And I had forgotten about it until the end of the episode. And I agree with you, Joseph, even though I was defending the fridge thing of them leading up to it. I wish it was more like because I was thinking the same thing. I was like, I want Carmi in this episode more. I want him around. I want it to be more involved. And so I get it. And I feel like I'll come to like it more if I rewatch it and see more of the hints and everything to it. But I feel like, yeah, you could have just done another panic attack in the back or something like that. They told me, hey, you got to go now or something like that. Like,
well, and as someone who's worked in the food industry and with Jared, a panic attack in the walk-in is like pretty much, if you've had one, you're okay. You're officially part of this food service industry. Like that is like,
that's the safe area.
Yeah, that's where you go to hit things like and hit like the
door.
wall, hit the beer keg, anything like yeah.
So I'm gonna agree with Michael, but you watch out next Friendsgiving for turning on me, Michael. I'm gonna throw
what
a
does
fork
that
at you.
mean?
You're like, oh, you guys. I disagree with all of you. I was with you.
Okay.
But I thought Claire was a perfect match for him. I thought she was what he needed in his life, and that's why it's going to be so hard for him to be like, I have to give this up for the restaurant. So, and that's why I was even weirded out when they were trying to, what I thought allude to like him and Sydney.
That's why at points I was like, I don't feel like that's what they were trying to do. I feel like it's more the part thing. But yeah, but then just leading up to that end point where I should have seen it coming, where Tina walks away and Claire comes up to the fridge, but you knew it was happening whenever she was talking to Rich. She's like, "What's going on? What's going on?" He's like, "He's in the fridge." She's like, "What?" And she walks back there, and then just like Jared said, like just that moment.
And then they were like, Sydney was like, "Tina, you have to go out here," or something like that.
Yeah, and I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna saunter off mid conversation with Carmi in the poor fridge." It's like someone give the man a warning so he doesn't do something so stupid as what he did and say the things he did. And oh my gosh. And then, like I said, I had forgotten about the voicemail. And then he's sitting there. I was like, oh my God, I know where this is going. I know how this is ending. And he pulls it up. And I was like, this is probably going to be good. And it was just, it was like good as in like well done. And it was just better than that. Like that voicemail hit so freaking hard and like so perfectly more than I expected to hit. And I was like, oh my gosh.
The whole little bit where it's like that pause, and she's like, I just love you. And he just like tosses the phone out. I was like, geez.
It was so good, man. Gosh, priorities, man.
My favorite part of the episode is probably Richie yelling at him in the fridge.
I like that.
I love you. I love you. I love you.
That was, I just reminded me that was so good, and how it was shot with the two separate things. Oh my gosh, I'll get into my
fact that he's calling him a parasite on his family, and
they take some deep cuts in there.
And he called him his mom, right? He said Donna or something like that, and that was her name.
Yeah,
like, you're being a Donna right now, and I was like, oh my. And he's like, don't you ever say, like, you don't say that. Like, which is true, though. He kind of was being this kind of crazy, starting to lose his mind in that sense. And it's like,
well, he's making it all about him.
Yeah. It's, oh my gosh. And, that was the whole thing. He wasn't relying on his partner or his team. Sorry to cut you off, but like, that's so much into it. You just like cleared that up in my head, Thomas. Oh my gosh.
I think voice. Oh, go ahead.
Well, no, I think that's why I like Richie's character development probably the most, was that he was willing to take the hit from Carmi to try to get him through it, even though past Richie would just be like, he would like go off on him too, instead of like staying focused and telling Carmi what he actually needed to hear and reinforcing it too. Is like, that's why I'm here. I love you, dude. I love you, dude. I love you, dude. And
then the voicemail is a double hit because she's like, oh, Richie's just so proud of you. He couldn't be more proud of you. And you're just like,
Yeah.
So like, good. That's good stuff, like, man.
There was like the emotional like roller coaster that this show goes through is fantastic. And it doesn't fetishize trauma, which I think a lot of shows do. Like you go through like Euphoria, that shows just basically trauma porn.
Yeah. That's like how depressed can we make these people?
Right, exactly. But this one it shows the root of why they're the way that they are, but it doesn't make excuses for them. It doesn't glamorize it, but it also shows the way that they're processing it and trying to move forward, even though they don't always do it. They're still making an effort. Everybody in the show makes an effort, which I love.
The mistakes they make, you sympathize because they're very human mistakes that you would do.
Yeah. And they learn from them too. They don't just wallow in it.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of what's dragging Carmi down probably the most, is that he's not learning from his mistakes like everybody else around him, even though he's supposed to be the best, like, he's the best guy in the food industry or whatever. And yet he's the one having to he's the one that's supposed to be relying on everybody else. And so this show is just very well done.
One more super cute thing in this episode. Marcus gets that package from the dude in Copenhagen.
Oh yeah.
Like, I wish you the best. And he gives him that sign. I was like,
is that who said that?
Yeah.
But it made it seem like maybe his mom took a turn for the worse, because it
was
like his phone and like he missed a lot of messages.
Yeah. So the nurse was calling. That. Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Sad. Okay, any last words on the season finale?
Not its strongest episode, but it was a good episode. But yeah, definitely a good episode.
Okay, so let's go through our thoughts for the entire season. Like I said, I was a little underwhelmed by this season. It felt very much like a transitional season. Like you got to set up the third season, which I'm sure is coming. And it felt very much like that. I didn't. When we talked about our favorite shows last year on like one of our first That's Good Stuffs, and this was on top. But even then, I said I don't want a sequel to this. I just want it to be standalone. And it kind of all my fears were kind of realized when those first couple episodes. It's like I don't want this. But I mean, it gives you one of the best episodes of a series in that season, in that episode 6. And that episode 6, it's just like, man, maybe all of that was worth just that one episode. But I'm sure if it comes back for season 3 will be pretty strong. But season 2, not my favorite. I would give it like a 7.5 maybe if I scored it on 100 scale.
Really, on 100?
Yeah, if you go through all the points.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant 7.5 out of 100. I was like,
no, not that low.
Man, you hated it.
Jesus,
You
less than
hate
1
Sydney.
star.
Darn it, Sydney. No, no, it was. Yeah, it just that one episode. Watch Fishes. Just watch Fishes. That's a great episode. Okay, what do you guys think?
You guys
Let's
can
go first.
Jared, go.
Oh, okay. I didn't get to talk about the first season. I missed it, but my whole thing going off the first season was like, this does not need a second season. I didn't want it, and I was not really looking forward to it. But those first 2 episodes, first 2 episodes, I was like, okay, like they just that like even I can't like remember them at all. But this season I really enjoyed. I think it hit its highest highs, but it did hit its lowest lows in this season, unfortunately. But those highs just like Honeydew was my favorite episode. I was like, that's like my dream. Forks, I was like, oh my god, this is like needs to be a movie with just Richie. Fishes was just like, oh my gosh, just traumatizing almost, and just so like intense. And then the final episode, I thought I liked it a lot more than you guys or Jolsa did. I thought it was a great ending, and it kind of makes me interested for the third season to see where Carmi goes.
Yeah,
at his like kind of the lowest right now. But I really like this season.
Next,
Yeah, like I said at the beginning, like how I watched it is how I feel about it. Like the first 5 episodes, I was like, okay, yeah. Like I was like, oh yeah, it'll be a good show to watch this summer or whatever. Wasn't too much looking forward to the second season, but I was like, yeah, it's just more of the bear. Like it's just kind of like the kitchen shenanigans. I thought the whole season was going to be, a part of them constructing, and they really skipped time. But then you hit that second half, and I just couldn't stop watching it. It was it's starting with Fishes at that night. I think it was the night before 4th of July, and I was like, well, yeah, this is all I'm doing for the rest of the night. And just that second half was incredible, man. Just the character development, everything, just the performances. And I have to shout out, like every time I watch this, I'm like, why don't people see this and shoot their stuff like this?
Yeah.
Everything is so interesting. There's so much inspiration I take from this, and like how everything is just so intentional and so many shots and so close up. It makes you feel involved in it, not this separation of, hey, we're going to take this whole, like when they do wide shots or long shots, there's a purpose to it. Like the table scene where they move in and they're fixing the table and they kind of move around together and everything. And even that, it's not still, everything's together. And the one shots in that last episode are so involved and thought out. Everything is thought out. It's not just, hey, set the camera up and we're just going to go. Everything is so
Whoever
intentional.
Is the cinematographer this is a master of like
incredible
visualizing space. Like, because you really can look at like a camera, or sorry, like a shot, and you understand exactly what's going on in that shot, and that is fantastic.
But none of it's like messy or confusing. Like it's like what you're supposed to look at, what they're thinking about, and the lighting too. The lighting is so good in this show. Everything's so like I said, interesting and shadowed. And Carmi, that I love that kind of face structure, like the kind of like longer nose and the chin that kind of dips in. There's something very interesting, like the bigger eyes. There's something about that face structure. There's a few actors that have it. And I'm like, they're always so interesting to me. I'm like, there's something about that. I'm like, it's very cool. And like his hair's everywhere. I'm like, you're a very cool person. Congratulations on being so cool. But man, I don't know. This show's
good for you.
good for you.
Good for you, sir.
Yeah, it's so good. It's excellent show. Excellent show.
Thomas?
Yeah, I think I actually enjoyed this season more than the first. I love the first season. There's a few things that don't, I say age well, but just you can tell the production quality wasn't quite there. Like a lot of the CGI,
The fire.
the fire. Oh my god, the fire. But with this one, it didn't really rely on that. It just relied on just the characters and focusing on them. And I think what Jared said was that is actually kind of interesting because I didn't really think about it. Is that we see Carmi and where we're going to go in the third season, hopefully a third season, knock on wood. But we see everybody else being at a high, like everybody's at a high. He's completely the opposite. And I want to see where that dynamic of those characters go, because is he going to learn from this? Is he going to learn to trust people? But yeah, just this whole, and I will say that most of my feelings toward this is toward the latter half, not the first half. The first half was a little slow. It did a lot of groundwork, but it just wasn't very exciting. And then pretty much from 4 onwards, like couldn't stop watching the show. Like amazing. But yeah, this show is amazing. I'm so happy that this exists, and the fact that we got this high of a quality in less than a year, which is pretty. That is insane to think about, because this thing was like it had it, and then they're like, okay, we approved the next season. In a year, they got this thing out. I mean, that was fast. So I don't know if they had that already pre-planned or what, but that's amazing to think about. Oh, and I wanted to mention something from the last episode. So when they catch the guy smoking crack in the back.
Oh yeah.
Okay. I don't know if this is just me, but like the kitchens that I've worked for, they're like, don't care. Like, just don't do it inside, man. Like, come on. Because I've seen guys like literally walk up from their car to the back door, pull out a joint, smoke the entire thing, fling it, and just walk straight in like nothing's happening. Now, granted, it's not crack, but still.
I always give the example. I had like a super busy day. I was working pizzas, and the guy helping me went out. He's like, I got to go smoke. Gotta go get high real fast. I was like, dude, don't leave me.
I like the part when they were like, when Marcus is like, he says it makes him work better. She's like, oh.
It's like, but I fire. Yes, you fire him. I like how he's like, hold on, let me ask first. Like, yeah, go ask.
Well, I do like when he's like, that is wild, and then he goes into the city. That's exactly what I said.
Shout outs to all the antacid product placement, the Tums and the Pepto. You do need those in the kitchen setting.
Well, I like when Carmi's like venting to Fac, and like the more and more he goes on, he's like, can I get a hit of that now? He's like, yeah, here you go.
The music choice was weird in this season. Like the first season, I thought really well with it, but this one had like 80s music and stuff. And I was like, what the heck is going on? Oh, and I wanted to mention that in the first season, he makes Ecto Cooler for a bunch of kids.
Oh, yeah.
In this season, he makes Sprite for a pregnant woman. So
yeah, true.
I want to see what happens in season 3.
Makes a Topo Chico.
That's going to be it for us for this episode. We are going to review Mission Impossible next time, so you'll want to check that out. So like, subscribe, and notify yourself for even more good stuff, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
All right, so we're